Perfect. All right. Welcome to our Infertility Awareness Shabbat kickoff. And we will be going through and talking about all of what is going on. As was said, we are recording this session. And so if you have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we will address those either during the call or at the end, depending on the question. And thank you all for coming. So just a reminder, the Infertility Awareness Shabbat is coming up in a little over a month, March 19th to 22nd. And you are here with Yesh Tikva. Yesh Tikva provides compassionate, Jewishly grounded emotional support, education, and community for individuals and couples navigating infertility and complex family building journeys. We work to reduce isolation, raise awareness, and ensure that no one in the Jewish community has to face these experiences alone. And here we have there are three of us here that are helping out with the presentation. My name is Rachel, Rachel Oslin, and I am an educator whose experiences with infertility caused me to shift from working in schools to finding ways to change how we talk about health and sex education, both in and out of the classroom. I also have experienced many experiences related to the fertility journey and personal women's health while at synagogue, actually, and have had limited resources or no resources over time. And so as we move forward and times change, I'm trying to help make sure that no one has to be put in those kinds of awkward positions. And then I'll turn it over to my Adel, who is also helping present.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Adel. I'm a social work student and an intern here at Yesh Tikva. My training is primarily focused on helping individuals navigate complex and often painful life experiences with compassion and sensitivity. I grew up in a community where connection and responsibility for one another was a core value, and having this strong communal support really taught me how powerful it can be when we are there for others in our community. And it inspired me to want to give back and to create spaces where people feel seen, supported, and less alone.
And I'm Kenzie Locks. I am the Director of Program and Educational Development. Thankfully managing just a number of wonderful, amazing programs, with IAS, Infertility Awareness Shabbat, being just a beautiful centerpiece of how we are bringing more awareness and understanding to the Jewish community. Thank you all for being here.
And Kenzie will also be managing the chat, and as more people arrive, we'll be letting them in as needed.
Yes, so please feel free, drop your questions in there if you need, and if it's not something for the whole group, I'll write you right back. And just a quick reminder, because some people joined a little later, we are recording this session. If you do not want your face on that recording, please turn off your camera. We do not have that ability for you. Thank you so much.
All right, so in this session, we are going to talk about how you as Jewish leaders can foster inclusion, awareness, and support for those navigating infertility, beginning with an Infertility Awareness Shabbat. So when we talk about raising awareness, we want you to understand the emotional, spiritual, communal challenges of infertility and family building a little bit. We want to empower you with language, tools, and approaches to support these individuals. And we want you to take a moment to kind of foster that reflection as well, so you can create and lead spaces where everyone feels like they still belong in Jewish life when family building becomes complicated.
So just a brief overview of infertility in the Jewish community. Infertility affects 1 in 6 individuals. Yet it remains shrouded in silence and stigma. Jewish communal life often centers on typical family building narratives, which can unintentionally amplify feelings of exclusion for those struggling with infertility or pursuing a more complex path to parenthood for any reason. I would love if we can all take a moment to reflect, to ask ourselves this question: What might it feel like to sit through a service where there are only prayers for children or those who have children, and none for those who are deeply yearning for children? What can we do to make those community members feel more included and seen? Can there be room for prayers for a future child?
All right. So as you think about that throughout the presentation, we're going to focus in now on Infertility Awareness Shabbat, or you will see it written out as IAS or referred to as IAS throughout the presentation. So IAS is an annual initiative that was started by Yesh Tikva in 2015 that invites Jewish communities around the world to acknowledge infertility, raise awareness, and foster compassion for those struggling to build their families. Its purpose is a reminder that belonging in Jewish life is not contingent on one's status as a parent, and that our communities must do more to support those walking through infertility and complex family building. Through prayer, language, and intentional moments of recognition, its goal is to reduce stigma and remind those navigating infertility that they are seen, supported, and they are not alone. We also want to draw your attention to the fact that IAS falls shortly before Passover, and we observe IAS in the weeks leading up to Passover because as one of the more Jewish standard Jewish holidays of the year, of child-centered Jewish holidays of the year, it can be deeply painful for those who are longing to grow their families. And while maintaining, and you shall tell your child, to songs, questions, and rituals designed around children, we're trying to invite you and your community to pause and widen your awareness. It's about making space for both the joy of the children at the Seder table, or perhaps not at the Seder table if you have older children, if you will, but it's about making space for both the joy and while also making space for those who are still waiting, grieving, or holding on to hope quietly. So what we want you to take a moment then as you're thinking about what do you want to do for IAS or what could you do, we want you to understand that the scale does not need to be large. So some possibilities that you can do with your synagogue or your community is you can include it as part of your regular sermon. You could do it with your men's group, because one of the things that people often forget is that men are affected too, whether it's because they are the ones experiencing the infertility directly or through supporting the family growing and all the physical experiences that their significant other is going. Or of course, there are same-sex couples out there as well that are also going through this journey. So men's groups, similarly, your women's group, if you have one. You could include a guest speaker during services or just a speaker as a completely separate event. You could include it quietly as part of your prayer for the sick, just when you read off names and include names of people experiencing it, or as a general for those experiencing infertility in the world. Remember that not all illnesses are visible. You could include it in your synagogue newsletter, or you could come up with an alternative way that best fits your own community. This program is not about doing everything or nothing, whether you speak about it in passing or in depth. The important part here is to show up.
So, why participate in IAS? Infertility is not just a medical reality. As we've shared and spoken about until now, it is also a communal, spiritual, and pastoral reality. Language and ritual shape belonging. How you respond matters.
So we want to be normalizing discussions of these topics, which makes it easier to help and support. At the beginning of a journey, many people experiencing infertility do not know that what they're experiencing isn't normal. They just know that things aren't happening the way they expect, and they feel alone. The more we talk about these topics, the easier it is for people to seek out the help they need, whether that's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or even seeking out medical support. And just a note from my own experiences, every time I dropped hints or I was brave enough to share about what was happening with my own journey, there was always someone who had experienced something in the infertility spectrum and wanted to share. So we need to ask ourselves, who is going to be the first person to speak up? We need to make sure that it's okay for everyone. And of course, we also need to remember that it impacts all of the members of your community, whether they realize it or not. When one member of our community is hurting, everyone is diminished by it. That's why we have all of these programs already in existence within our community. We care for the elderly, we care for the sick, we visit people in the hospital, we sit Shiva together. Why are we not also helping people who are isolated and lonely, but for whom this isn't necessarily visible? So we do want to make sure that we bring attention to it. So we have, like our triennial with Torah portions, we have created 3 themes that go with IAS moving forward. We have 1 year that we're going to focus on the idea of the shared responsibility, Arivut, where the idea that we're navigating this in private, but the impact is communal. And we want to focus on breaking isolation. We have the idea of the psychological toll. And this focuses on the mental health challenges. Specifically, you can think about the anxiety of waiting and the pain of speaking out. And you can talk about the path forward as well, where we're looking at dignity, new beginnings, and this is focusing on ways that a family is built, how a person can remain whole throughout this whole process, all of these experiences, which quite frankly do have a tendency to remove your sense of dignity and just a lot of mental health challenges that come along the way.
So this year's theme that we'll be focusing on is Arivut, shared responsibility, and IAS falls out on the week that we read Parshat Vayikra. Even though this is the theme that we're focusing on for this year and the Torah portion that it correlates with, the most important thing is for your community to feel comfortable, and it's totally okay if you take a slightly different journey from other participating congregations and choose to use one of our other themes or to incorporate IAS in any way that makes the most sense based on what's happening in your community.
So if you choose to sign up for IAS, or perhaps when you choose to sign up for IAS, in addition to we will be giving you a number of resources that are included that you can choose to use or use to enhance any other programming that you might already be doing, whether it's for the Torah portion, for your community, regular Shabbat, regular community building. You can include it in that, or you can add it in addition to and supplement. So we will be including thematic connections to the Torah portion based on those values. And those are connected to those 3 themes that we shared in the previous slides, and how you can tie them to that Torah portion. We are including sample language that you can use. So we have some suggested phrasing that you can use to help people who are struggling. And of course, this always pairs well with what you are already putting into practice as a leader within your community. You're already listening and hearing people, but sometimes it helps to just hear that little refresher or an alternative way to frame it when you're helping a different type of challenge for there. And we also have programming and options that are appropriate for members of your community of all ages. And these are hands-on experiences that can be used to introduce the concept all the way to more direct discussions. And there are activities that are suited towards working with your youngest congregants, the people that might be in Hebrew school, or perhaps, siblings, hopeful future siblings of others, or all the way through, all the way to the oldest congregants who might be hoping to become grandparents or great-grandparents and aren't understanding quite what might be happening, or that there are people struggling with it, to the people in between, whether they've chosen to grow their family or are currently experiencing it, or anything along the way. So we have activities that are appropriate for everyone. And we have resources that you can use to continue to provide support to your community moving forward. So we're not just containing it to this one moment in time, this one weekend. They don't have to be used during IAS. You can see an activity and say, oh, this would be perfect to do 6 months from now. And by all means, use that activity 6 months from now. We want to be there to support you. So Yesh Tikva is here as a continued resource throughout the year, not just through IAS in this one moment. And we want to help to support you as you support your congregants. And we have direct resources as well for those people who are experiencing an infertility journey. Just remember that the more normal the conversation is, the easier it is for someone who is struggling to feel included and perhaps even be brave enough to seek out additional support. We also want to remind you that if a situation or a need for a resource arises that maybe you don't have, we are still here to help answer your questions and help you create additional resources beyond what is included in the packet at this time, because we continue to grow our own resources and what is out there and available for you as you move forward. So we will take that beat just to remind yourself, help replace silence in your community. It's really simple steps, but it does have a real impact. And we want to take a beat here while we're on this slide to check in. I know I saw a couple things that popped up. Kenzie, do you want to touch on some of those questions?
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing about IAS and how there's just so many ways to get involved. So we have one question in the chat. If you have a question, please also put it in the chat, and you can absolutely reach out to us. We're going to put our contact information up as well. I'll do that actually right now in case there's anything you need, but by all means, reach out. So the question here, on Shabbat, are there presenters that could visit the various organizations that are partnering? Could they run a support group on Shabbat afternoon? Beautiful question. Potentially is the answer. It really depends on where you are. We have synagogues in various countries and of course states. If you yourself, anybody else on this call, are hoping to have somebody come and be a speaker, first of all, we love that concept, and we have volunteers and mentors and ambassadors in most communities, I would say. And so if you are hoping to connect with somebody and you don't know of anybody off the top of your head that's within your community, please reach out to this email address. Let them know that you're hoping to connect with somebody. Ask to be put in touch with me, and I will try to connect you with somebody who can speak. What I will say, something that we try to be cautious about with having speakers in general, is the reason for IAS is we don't want individuals from your community to feel like the only way to have a conversation about infertility is to volunteer themselves to tell their story. If that's something that they feel comfortable doing, amazing. We applaud them. We lift them up. We amplify their voice. And also, if they are struggling and they want to remain private for whatever reason, we also really honor that boundary, which gives us all the more reason to try to help you find a speaker who does want to speak and does want to share. And so we certainly can do that. But tomorrow, if Lincoln Square Synagogue is where I think Lincoln Square Synagogue is, just send an email and maybe I can make a trip really quick. It should be fine. Any other questions? We also, if it's easier to hop off and unmute, you can feel free to just verbally ask a question if that's at all helpful. I know typing can be complicated if you're running around.
We will also acknowledge that if you have a question or comes to you after this call ends, please don't hesitate to email events@yeshtikva.org, and we will be happy to get back in touch with you and make sure that you have the answers you need.
For sure. And there's also our Infertility Awareness Shabbat page has quite a lot of information. So whether you have signed up or you have not yet signed up, please check it out. There's a lot of answers. If you have signed up, we are getting a lot of information ready to get sent out to you. So if you are at all concerned that you haven't, you have a lot of things to juggle, you're getting a beautiful packet. You're going to get materials of how to share this within your newsletter, your social media, within your community. We also offer IAS for people to host in their homes. So you can also bring it to your congregation, as this is something you can do yourself and invite people. And we can share more in the packet about how you'll do that. But thank you all so much for coming. It's such a joy to be in community together. And we're looking forward to a really meaningful IAS season. It's always a really special time. And we're just glad to have you along for the ride with us.